everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the PokerNews Podcast. We have a lot of action to cover this week. It seems like every time we have like a moderately sleepy week, we have a bananas crazy town week to follow. We've got two guests for you this week, but we did them in a sort of a sandwich. Some might call it a threesome, to introduce you guys to, which we've been talking about for a long time, the Pennsylvania streamers who are the newest members of Team PokerStars Pro. It was really nice to talk to them, actually. They got me all excited about the future and potential of online poker in the United States, and I hope that they do the same for you guys. That's Mark Becker, who goes by Nigo1, who he explains where that came from. It's actually a very cool nickname. And Keith Foresta, AccidentalGrenade, who has like another, they both have regular full-time jobs and lives and are still managing to stream. So clearly just big lovers of the game, and they're living that American dream that we're all hoping can happen for the rest of us. Now, Chad, I saw that people were excited last week that I called you our resident American. I would like to just make clear that Jeff is from Texas originally, so he's also very much American, and I am as American as apple pie. So for everyone who's listening who is American, this is a trifecta of resident Americanism. But Chad just happens to also like have his work life related to being from America. But Chad, you're going to be gone soon, like tomorrow, not in America, right?
Yeah, ironically, outside of America, we're headed to Mexico, Cabo San Lucas for the very first time I've been, I'll have been in Mexico, which is kind of strange. I've been all over the world, just never to our neighbors to the south. But there is a wedding down there that I'll be attending. It's a poker wedding for one Mr. Garry Gates. You might recognize him from finishing fourth in the 2019 World Series of Poker main event. Had a deep run. He is a poker industry veteran. In fact, he used to work for PokerNews way back in the day, headed up the live reporting even before our times here. I think he was exiting to go into a career at PokerStars as we were entering in PokerNews, but been good friends with him ever since. He is getting married, going to a destination wedding, all-inclusive resort. Should be a lot of fun. I'm going to have a lot of colleagues there from the poker world, and as well as a lot of poker players. I mean, he was kind of the VIP handler for PokerStars for a while. So he, made good friends with a lot of the high roller players, just a lot of players in general. And so I'm expecting it to be quite the party down there in Mexico. I'm going to be there for the next 5 days, a lot of beach, a lot of sun, a lot of drinks and food.
I'm very much anticipating a Chad Holloway blackout, drunken kind of situation where you embarrass yourself in front of everyone that we know and represent the PokerNews Podcast like I know you will. Chad, get ham.
Just another Tuesday.
That's it. Just another Tuesday, not in Wisconsin. And I have to be honest with you, I will say, also having done my fair share of traveling, I think Mexico is one of the best places to go.
Agreed.
It's cheap, it's gorgeous, especially that side of Mexico, the sort of, white sand beach side. Is Cabo, Cabo is on that side too also, right? Same
it's
side
like it's on the opposite. It's like the Baja Peninsula, all the way down at the very bottom of the peninsula.
Not quite as nice, I'll be honest. I think the east coast of Mexico is definitely like the prettiest, but the west coast is fine too. It's just the oceans are a little dirtier and like the beaches aren't white sand, but whatever.
It's something funny, Sarah, that I know you can relate to because of all the traveling we've done for PokerNews. So I'm flying to Cabo and I have, my fellow Wisconsinites saying, "Oh, that's so cool. How long's the flight?" And it's like, I don't know, 5 hours. I got to change planes in Denver. And, it's like 2 to Denver, another 3 from Denver to Cabo or something like that. They're like, "Oh, that's so long." I'm like, no, that's a piece of cake compared to what we used to do. Like I once flew from just Chicago to Hong Kong with 16 hours in an airplane. And, we went to Australia several times, and going from LA to Sydney or whatever it is 13 hours or something. So like me flying anywhere in the United States, or here in this case, even Cabo, when the flights are 4 or 5 hours, is like a piece of cake. I'm just getting settled in. I watch a couple movies, a couple TV shows, and boom, we're there.
Take a nap. Here I am. I've had a few cocktails. I'm ready for it because we have to get started on the Chad Holloway, Garry Gates wedding blackout, which I hope to see on many people's social medias this weekend. Chad, Jeff, I know you're very busy, and I'm not sure if these are covert operations you're on or if there's anything you can share, but it seems like you've got some cool projects going down this week also.
Yeah. GG is running the World Series of Poker Super Circuit Series. Brent Hanks and I are going to call the final table main event. Biggest main event in circuit history, just as far as attendance is concerned. There's a $5 million guarantee on that $525 buy-in. And also, Sarah and Chad, we have the US Poker Open. It is back. It returns at the beginning of June. So we'll be there. We'll be in the PokerGo studios for the 10K high rollers, for the 25K high rollers, and for the 50K main event. I think we did it. I think we're back. I mean, you don't have to wear the mask. You're good to go.
Speaking of PokerGo and the PokerGo studio, I just saw this yesterday. There is a date confirmed for round 3 of the heads-up duel between Hellmuth and Negreanu, right? I think it was June 23rd, if I'm not mistaken.
It's after the US Poker Open. It's about a week after that. It is June 23rd, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific on PokerGo. It's round 3, 200K a person, Hellmuth versus Negreanu.
What do you think's going to happen here? Like,
I was just going to say, who do you get your money on now?
Like, I want Hellmuth to win it again. Like, that would be so exciting.
Yeah.
I do think Negreanu might pull this one out. So to me, it's catch 22. Like, if Hellmuth wins, wow, to sweep both Antonio and Negreanu back to back, like, that's pretty strong. And I mean, kind of embarrassing for Negreanu, right? Like, after all the kind of preparation and kind of smack talk, he's been pretty harsh on Hellmuth in his game as of late. So if Hellmuth can go 3-0, that's great, but he would also quit, right? He's not going to go any further. So then we'd have to start fresh. Whereas if Negreanu wins, all right, he wins all the money, and then we get the next matchup, right? He's got to carry it forward, and so that would be the high stakes duel we've had to that point. So that either way, it's kind of a win-win in my book. Like, whoever wins, it's a great story.
And at this point, it's still early enough in the competition to where Negreanu, in order for him to withdraw, he would have to win 3 straight. So if he does win, then we're not only guaranteed a high stakes duel where each person has to put up 400K, but we're also guaranteed that next round where each person would have to put up $800,000, and we'd have a $1.6 million high stakes duel. This has been tough to forecast, I guess. I mean, I'm still all about Negreanu winning. I think Negreanu has played better. Hellmuth certainly has improved from round 1 to round 2. And, a lot of people in poker say any guy who's like plus 150-ish in a sit and go format like this, you just always have to take the plus 150. I'm biased, of course, but I'm going to side with Negreanu again in round 3, and I think he pulls it off.
Real quick question, Sarah, we'll get your pick, but then I also want from each of you, let's say Negreanu wins. Who could his potential next matchup be, right? If we're talking that high of stakes, it's kind of limiting the player pool of people who would actually come take him on. I know on his podcast, the DAP Poker podcast, in the recent episode, he thought maybe Doug Polk could actually come and they could give him a chance to get some of his money back in the live realm. He doesn't think that'll happen, but he said maybe that's a possibility. So Sarah, who do you think will win, Hellmuth and Negreanu? And if it is Negreanu who ends up winning, who would you like to see his next matchup be?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Jeff on this one and just give it to Negreanu, just because, like, from a statistics standpoint, right, in this like small amount of hands, it would make sense that maybe someone else would come out on top every now and then. I love the story of Phil winning, though, of course, and I won't be mad at it if that does happen. I do think it's unrealistic to think that Doug would do this, just based on my last interview with him. He seemed pretty uninterested in playing a lot more poker, and definitely didn't seem particularly interested in continuing to play Daniel, that's for sure. I don't think he would have like anything really to gain from that, but I would guess maybe more along the lines of like a Phil Ivey or a Tom Dwan, sort of like we talked about last week, one of these like original OGs that's been resurfacing and popping up, who might see it as a value spot. I don't know.
I would also, I'm kind of aligned with Sarah there, and just for the sake of a prediction, no inside info, but I'll take Phil Ivey. I think if Negreanu wins, then it's him versus Ivey, 400K a pop, and that'll be pretty sick.
Dude, that would be really fun.
Yeah, no, that'd be pretty awesome.
I think if I had a top choice, it would be Ivey, and Dwan would be great as well. But I could see somebody like a Bryn Kenny getting in there and mixing it up. I really like Bryn. He's quite the character. He's tournament poker's all-time money leader. He loves to get in there and battle, and he's kind of got that feel mentality that Hellmuth does. So it would be interesting to see him kind of cut from the same cloth as a Hellmuth going up against Negreanu and seeing those two different styles. But yeah, I think anybody, once the stakes get that high, would be a very entertaining match. And we'll have to wait and see. Like we said, we've got until June 23rd before it's settled. And it'll be a lot of smack talk between now and then, I'm sure.
Well, before we get too much into our stories, which we're going to kick off with some kind of interesting and semi-controversial things, let's just take a quick moment to hear from our sponsors, Elite Chip Care.
Chips dirty and unsanitary? Elite Chip Care's ultrasonic cleaners kill bacteria and pathogens without using chemicals. Protect your team from potentially hazardous chemicals, UV, and gases. For daily sanitizing of your chips, our laboratory oven will eradicate most viruses using only heat. Up to 2,500 chips sanitized in just 3 minutes. Avoid the reoccurring expense of costly chemicals, UV bulbs, and gases. Safe, inexpensive, and sustainable. Visit EliteChipCare.com.
And we've discussed sort of ad nauseum on the podcast over the course of the last year and a half, COVID, how it's been affecting, poker players, what's been going on in the US. Things have shifted dramatically in the last few weeks, it seems like, in the United States. The Las Vegas scene the casinos are stripping down the barricades. I already said stripping down.
I see what
I'm
you did
losing
there.
all my funds.
I'm
just letting them go. But it's interesting because we actually we just had Sean Yapel from the Hustler Casino in Los Angeles on, and it seemed kind of spot on that one of our news stories from this week would be about Larry Flynt's Hustler Club, actually in Las Vegas. It seems like Mr. Flynt seems to be on the sort of forefront of a lot of action in the poker space. And Chad, let's talk a little bit about this story. Or actually, maybe I should throw it to Jeff because you're in Las Vegas. Are you going to the Hustler
he's probably
Club?
going to go.
It's funny. I've never heard of Larry Flynt's Hustler Club in Las Vegas, but I guess according to the article, a top Las Vegas strip club will be used as a pop-up vaccination site this Friday to help Clark County residents, that's in Las Vegas, get their COVID-19 vaccines. So this Friday, Larry Flynt's Hustler Club opening up a 3-hour walk-in vaccination center. It's going to be fantastic. I might go just to support the cause.
Yeah,
I'm good to go. Just to watch people get vaccinated. Yeah.
It's
not familiar with the place.
We poke fun, but it is actually kind of cool, or at least indicative of the efforts that Vegas is making. And to be fair, it's not the only pop-up vaccination site that's happening in Vegas. At the end of the article, there's a half dozen or so that are opening it up. And I say it's just kind of cool because it shows the initiative that Las Vegas is taking to get their population vaccinated, to have these options, to make it very convenient so that they can get back on their feet even more. And they really have gotten back up on their feet in the recent last month or two, I would say. It was, we've seen the plexiglass coming down. We've seen going from 8-handed to 9-handed in some properties in the poker rooms. That's not to mention the rest of the casinos and stuff. And by all signs kind of indicating that maybe we'll be mask free before too long here in the United States. And it's because of initiatives like this, like the pop-up at the Wynn. You had it where employees could actually get vaccinated on site, which is one of the reasons they got to 80% of their employees vaccinated, and they could take down the plexiglass and other such precautions. So it is funny because it's, a strip club and what have you, but like I said, it's kind of cool that they're really just going outside the box to get people vaccinated in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I love it. And at the Venetian, I was playing a little bit there, and now in the casinos, to Chad's point, you do not have to wear a mask if you are fully vaccinated. And so it was strange to be in a casino without a mask. It just felt weird. It felt like freeing of sorts after, I don't know how long it's been, 12 to 14 months of mask wearing. It's like we're really turning the tide here. And obviously the same, unless something drastically changes, the same rule will be in effect for the World Series of Poker come this fall.
I would be surprised at this point, just given the way things are headed here in the United States, if the WSOP isn't just like it normally is. I don't think there'll be really any precautions that need to be taken. I don't think there'll be masks. There won't be plexiglass. The only thing at this point that I could see being an issue still at that point would be perhaps some of these travel restrictions and travel bans, because it might take a lot longer to get those rescinded or what have you. And we know that a lot of other countries are still lagging or don't have as much access to vaccinations as we do here. They can't just go to their local strip club and get a vaccination. So.
That's just weird. That's just weird when you say that. And I saw this weekend, actually, Most in Charania posted some tweet that said, oh, it's funny because like 30% of the country is vaccinated or something, and but like 98% of the area. And I was like, I wonder what he's trying, like, what is he getting at here exactly? I wasn't sure exactly what was being said there, but maybe just that the poker world is like so eager to get back to.
I kind of think what he's getting at is, you know, they don't ask for your vaccination cards. So I think what he's implying is plenty of people who have not been vaccinated are like, hey, here's the open door for me not to wear my mask. That kind of thing.
Like me.
You know,
we'll get you vaccinated, Sarah. Just come on down to Larry Flint's Hustler Club.
And it's crazy, actually. It's so funny how like things have even happened within the country, because I just read an article. We have like our community newspaper, you know, and they were saying they're closing down a lot of the vaccine sites here because they've like they've been open for long enough that like the people that are going to get vaccinated already have, and now they're kind of like doing nothing anymore. There's no more need or use for it. But this happened, you know, those vaccination sites opened like 3.5 months ago. So it's interesting, like how things, and then you can see that in the macro level, like in the world as a whole, things are happening at very different paces, just depending on where you happen to live.
You know, we were talking about like things kind of getting back to normal, and there is actually something that happened this week, just over the past few days, that really made me feel like, wow, like we are back to normal, or this is a huge step towards back to normal. And that was the playing out of these long delayed World Poker Tour final tables, right? They've been backlogged for over a year, and they played out in Vegas at the Poker Go studio. And it was one of those, I'm like, wow, like the backlog is cleared. We're not looking back at these events that were impacted by COVID that still need to be made up, because they just were. Now we can look to the future, so to speak. And I thought it was a big moment.
Because we're having all of these biggest tournament ever WPTs, which are going to have their final tables later. So we had to like make some space, right? We have to make some room because there's plenty of more champions to be crowned. And I guess that is like the perfect segue right into talking a little bit about who our champions are. WPT Borgata, after a gigantic delay in the Winter Poker Open, holy cow, $674,840. It was Virab Zakarian. Chad, why don't you go ahead and I took the name for you. I did. Yeah. That was like, I fell on the sword for you.
It's actually, I knew this one because he is a former MSPT champion, believe it or not. I heard back in, I think 2018, it was at the Seneca Niagara stop. He ended up winning that for 60,000 or something like that. But I remember being told at the time by the local player base that watch out for this kid. He's very good at poker. He's going to go on to do great things. And here we are now, 2 or 3 years later, and he's a World Poker Tour champion. He ends up topping what was a 1,290 entry field that was established back in, I think, January of 2020. That final table was supposed to play out on April 1st, 2020, and then of course the pandemic delayed it almost more than a whole year, here playing out in May of 2021. So those 6 players had to wait a very long time. Virab Zakarian began the final table as the chip leader, ended up closing it out, as Sarah said, for $674,000. Coming in third place was Brian Altman, who, interestingly, this performance, making this final table, helped him win the Hublot WPT Player of the Year in between actually playing it out, if that makes sense. Like, he didn't even have to finish this one before winning that title, but he ended up finishing in third place for $333,000. And so that was a big one, right? So the Borgata closes the chapter on this Winter Poker Open final table, and now can turn their attention to the future, which is interesting because Borgata is one of those properties who they're back up and running for cash games. and maybe some local daily tournaments or something like that. But they were a major East Coast player in hosting, their summer poker open, their winter poker open, the spring. That hasn't returned, and we don't know when and if that will happen, but at least now they've closed the door on the past and can focus on the future.
I mentioned, 675K or more than 675K feels like a heck of a lot of money, but our other two WPT champions are both walking away with more than $1 million. Brett Shooten won the WPT Seminole Hard Rock Poker Showdown for $1.261 million. I've never met anyone named Breck, but I kind of think that's cool. For some reason, it seems very like frat boy of a name or something. I'm not sure, but
it's
I like
short.
it.
It's short for breakfast.
Yeah, which makes sense. Brecky,
Yep,
he's
what it is.
That's exactly what it is. But it seemed like an interesting enough final table. Obviously, they were all fighting very hard to try to stay in, to try to capture, some of those pay jumps. The pay jumps are massive in these fields and in these spots. And it took more than 40 hands for even any player to hit the rail. But Breck was doing work out there. It seems like, according to the article on PokerNews.com, he eliminated all but one of the players at the final table. So he was definitely doing work. And Jeff, you want to tell us a little bit about our last WPT champ?
Yeah, sure. It's the LA Poker Classic. This is one of those that was also delayed for about a year. That Seminole being the one that Sarah mentioned was a couple weeks ago and just had the absolutely massive turnout off a $3,500 buy-in to award more than 1.2 million up top is pretty sick. More than $1 million awarded to the LAPC champ. That would be Balakrishna Pator, who wins $1,015,000 and this World Poker Tour title. In second place, Matas Simbalis, who is looking for his second World Poker Tour title. James Carroll in third. Upeshka de Silva's bad luck continues at these delayed final tables as he finishes in sixth place. You'll remember he had the World Series of Poker main event final table, tested positive for COVID, was disqualified, ended up being eliminated in ninth. I think at the last round of delayed final tables, he was eliminated in like sixth, and then it's another sixth place finish for him.
Dude, sorry for him, but also like he's doing okay, fortunately.
He'll be fine. He'll be fine.
He'll be all right.
Okay.
Well, Chad, last weekend, I think it was last weekend, you were over in Deadwood. You made it seem very cool. It's definitely a stop I would like to check out. You did not win. Why don't you give us a little taste of what happened at the MSPT in Deadwood and why you're not the champ?
Well, I'm not the champ, and you guys didn't know this. I didn't end up going. I had plans change and fall through at the last minute. So unfortunately, I did not make it out to Deadwood. I actually got a message from Taylor Howard before saying, "Are you going to be in Deadwood?" I said, "No, unfortunately, I can't." He's, "Oh, that sucks, because I was going to invite you over to our place for drinks." And Taylor Howard is a guy I've known. He's based out of Iowa. He is a former MSPT MISCOOP champion. And the reason I mention that is because he ended up going on to win this tournament, to become a two-time MSPT champ. He won it for almost $120,000. And I was sweating this very hard all weekend because I didn't end up going, and I definitely had some FOMO all weekend long because it ended up just everybody from the Midwest was there. It was a huge turnout for this particular property. So $1,100 main event, $100K guarantee, ended up getting 585 entries. So more than $500,000 prize pool was up for grabs. That's just in 2 starting flights. And to put it in perspective, the largest ever tournament for a $1,000 buy-in at this venue before was 258 entries. So it more than doubled it. I've been there before. It's a pretty small venue. And so to get that many people in there, I know, there was alternates, there were some lines, but that's just par for the course in the poker world right now. Like, if you have a poker tournament, people will come. It's like Field of Dreams. Well, this is the poker Field of Dreams. And so it was a massive turnout. Like I said, I was sweating it pretty hard. It was a exciting final table. Not only was Taylor Howard there, but a shout out to Tim Dunce. He actually plays in my home game here in Reedsburg, Wisconsin. Him and another guy did go out to Deadwood, and he ended up navigating that big field and finished in 9th place for $10,000. So hopefully some of that money comes into our home game. And yeah, I don't know. Paul Cambia is another one that was making the rounds on social media because he ended up finishing in 4th place for almost $40,000. But the reason he was a hit with the fans was because he was donning this old timey suit and a top hat. And it just, to me, it was like the perfect outfit for Deadwood, right? Like if you imagine Deadwood, South Dakota, he was dressed as a guy who could have been playing poker with Wild Bill Hickok when he was shot in the back of the head by Jack McCall back in 18, whatever it was.
I saw that picture and that immediately stood out. I mean, all due respect to Taylor for winning the tournament, but yes, Mr. Canby with the top hat and the tuxedo, that old school Deadwood feel, super, super old school as it gets in the poker world. That was pretty cool.
And, you know, Taylor was wearing his hoodie in the picture, his winner's photo, which is with by the way, the best trophy in all of poker, in my opinion.
Awesome.
Hands down.
Yeah, they got 2 pistols. It's just a beautiful, beautiful trophy. But on his hoodie, it says LFG. And I just like to think that it's a shout out to me and Jamie Kerstetter from our LFG podcast back in the day.
That's definitely what it was. Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing.
His winning hand was aces. Who wins with aces? Who wins a tournament with aces? How do you get aces heads up?
Isn't that like I'm looking at the winner's photo. You're right. Like he did win with aces, and so they're called bullets, right? He's got 2 bullets right next to those two pistols on that trophy in Deadwood. It's just it's too good to be true, and it's a fun stop. If you can ever get to Deadwood, please do. I would love to see it become like a little poker destination again. So
Chad, always with the poetics, so beautiful. The bullets, the guns, the Deadwood. There you have it. Well, I want to give a little time here to our Pennsylvania streamers, but Chad, why don't you talk us through the New Jersey, Michigan scoop excitement, which it looks like there's some sort of article maybe you shared with Kevin Taylor. Shout out to Kev Tay, who I love. But why don't you talk to us about how exciting that is in brief, and then let's throw to our streamers.
Yeah, so we still have the updates going on PokerNews.com for both the Michigan and New Jersey spring championships of online poker taking place at PokerStars. Follow along all the action there. There's been a lot of big winners in recent days. Frank Funaro, based out of New Jersey, has really been tearing it up. I actually got to play with him all of day one at that WPT Venetian 5K back in March. He's just a great young up and coming player. He's the one who finished runner up to Joe McKeon in last year's online high roller bracelet event. So I just mentioned that because Frank Funaro, in my opinion, is a guy who's going to go on to do even bigger and better things in the poker world. And I just wanted to get his name out there and, say, keep an eye out for him. And then the Michigan numbers have been really impressive thus far. Let me pull up. I got a spreadsheet where I'm tracking everything. So through the first 26 events, which remember each event has a low, medium, and high buy-in. So you're looking at 78 different tournaments. It's catered to nearly 30,000 combined entries and awarded more than $1.4 million in prize money. That's for Michigan. Now compare that to the New Jersey. They have completed 36 events, same format. So now you're looking at 108 events that have been completed, and they've catered to about a little over 18,000, so a little more than half of the Michigan ones, and awarded 870 in prize pool. So again, about half of what Michigan's doing, and still great turnout, still great storylines coming out of NJSCOOP. But I find it interesting that the Michigan scoop is outperforming them really in a less number of events. So just a testament to how strong that Michigan poker market that really launched earlier this year is. So we'll have daily recaps on both those scoops on PokerNews.com. So check it out. And of course, they're both coming on the heels of the Pennsylvania scoop, where we had 2 of PokerStars' newest ambassadors playing and streaming almost every day. They're both Twitch streamers. Mark Nagel won Foresta and Keith, Accidental Grenade, Becker, and Sarah, you caught up with both of them.
Yeah, these guys were very warm, very lovely. Really, I would say these sort of all-American guys. And I really appreciated it when you hear how busy and wild their schedules are. It was really nice, and it makes a lot more sense to me now why it was a little bit hard for me to get these interviews scheduled. These boys are busy. All right, everybody. Now, I have been teasing this interview for what seems like 6 weeks now or something, but it is legit. We are finally here with two of the newest members of Team PokerStars Pros, two of their newest ambassadors. And I have to tell you guys that as a member of the Team America, it was so awesome to see the announcement that there was two American guys joining the team. I think all of us, around here have been maybe passively giving up that we would just never see something like this again. So first of all, a huge, huge congratulations to you guys. And since we're doing like a threesome, I'm going to have to, I'll throw to each of you kind of individually for the most part, so it doesn't get, too complicated going over each other, but I'm really excited. So let's first of all, since Mark joined in first,
Fair.
The first guy, we're gonna get Keith in with the sloppy seconds. Mark, let's talk about, I feel like for as long as I've been in poker, to get a sponsorship is something that forever has been what players would love to have happen, but really for the last 5 or 6 years has seemed like a really unattainable goal, maybe more, maybe closer to like 7 or 8 years. So Mark, tell me a little bit about what it felt like to be offered this opportunity.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, first and foremost. The first time I got contacted by PokerStars, I honestly didn't think it was real. I felt I certainly wasn't familiar with anybody who would be reaching out or anything of the sort. But as soon as I found out that there was a real opportunity to work with a company that we've kind of been so excited to be a part of, even just playing on the platform for about 1.5 years, it was a dream come true for sure. Every step of the way exceeded my expectations on how they were able to reach out and how real it became, how quickly it became a thing. And it was just something I've wanted forever. So truly a magical moment for me.
And I have to imagine, Keith, that you also did not anticipate this. Really, it's hard, I feel like at this point, to shock me, and especially these more traditional news stories. So my head exploded. Tell me sort of what the experience was like for you to start this partnership.
I could echo what Mark said, and just that it was sort of mind-blowing, and we were working really hard towards this as a goal. Like you said, I think it's a goal of a lot of poker players to become sponsored with a site. I've said it maybe kind of ad nauseum at this point, but growing up, the players with a badge or the players affiliated with a site were like some of my idols, like they were larger than life. So just for that to come through, there definitely was some disbelief on our side. Like I think Mark and I both kind of wanted to confirm that it wasn't spam, that we weren't getting scammed or something, right? Like there wasn't like is this for real? So it was it's been very surreal and mind-blowing, and we're just humbled and honored. And to be American ambassadors especially, I think is just so exciting with the blossoming future return of poker, hopefully to America, is what we're all crossing our fingers for, I think, collectively. And if we get to be a part of that in any way, shape, or form, it's just such an honor.
I 100% am with you. I would have definitely been like checking the IP address for like a Nigerian like back end somewhere. But yeah, I think it's an interesting thing at this point now that you guys are kind of carrying on your shoulders, which is like the dreams and future and hopes of all of us Americans here.
Jeez, no pressure, right? Wow.
No big deal. Like just take it easy. But you guys, and this is something that we mentioned on the podcast probably about a month ago, is that it is maybe also an opportunity that you guys sort of are going to lead the way for what we hope to see as the future of streaming and playing in the US, that streaming does really seem to be, people are always like, how can we get women in poker? How can we get more people in poker? And streaming does seem to be a way that people are able to sort of learn the game in a semi-passive, but also connected community where they still are, feel very much part of it, feel comfortable to ask questions. It does seem like a great way to bring people to the game. And that being said, the market for streamers in general is, I think a lot of people think, saturated maybe. And it's scary, I think, to jump in, and, you have to, I think, have a lot of tenacity. You may or may not start with like, your mom and your grandma like watching for the first couple months or whatever it is. But when you do develop an audience, I think those people are incredibly loyal, and you really do get a sense of community that you have a hard time finding in other platforms or other places. So let's start, Keith, aka AccidentalGrenade.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about, making the decision, making the commitment to start streaming, and some of the things in the beginning. Did you feel comfortable? It's quite overwhelming, even just the technical side of getting things set up, but it looks like you got that figured out.
Yeah, it definitely can be. So a little bit of background on me. I streamed for a long time, even before poker. I streamed video games. I played for a long time video games that actually kind of align with poker in a way. I played a genre of games called roguelikes or roguelites. And basically they're games with a heavy element of RNG. So where the game is always changing, and runs or playthroughs of the game are always different. And that sort of aligns with poker and the variance of the cards and the randomness of the cards that we all know and love. And just kind of jumped at the chance to jump onto PokerStars PA when it launched. I had always loved playing poker when I was younger with friends, and like kind of a game where we played together for like extremely long amounts of time and got into like psychology leveling wars with each other and stuff like that. But had sort of taken a break from any kind of online play when poker in a regulated sense left the USA. And so I was like super excited to jump onto PokerStars PA when it came back. But yeah, streaming poker definitely has its challenges. I know I don't want to speak for Mark, but for me, I know that I would say that streaming poker is minus EV from a poker perspective, but I think it's plus EV from like a enjoyment perspective, and the community growth is amazing, and just being able to bring the game to more people, all that stuff makes it worth it. I also think streaming poker is a little bit tough with inability to study. I mean, I have a daytime job. I have a 2.5-year-old girl and a wife, and and now I stream poker as a sponsored ambassador. So I think like a lot of sites or coaches would try to say you should do like, I don't know, 80% play, 20% study. I think for me, it's probably more like 98 or 99 and like 1% study when I can. So
and like
yeah.
20% take care of the baby.
Right,
and
yeah,
like
exactly.
your like
And then
percentages
also,
are
like,
off the
I have
charts.
my actual job, like my daytime job. Yeah, it's a lot.
What do you do during the day? How do you allow that for a schedule where you can squeeze this in?
So the poker streaming, because because PokerStars Pennsylvania is a ring fence site in only one state, the majority of the tournaments happen in the evening. I work a typical kind of 8 to 5 job schedule, so that sort of facilitates that at least a little bit. During the day, I do software development, and I'm a business analyst for a healthcare company here in Pennsylvania. So
So you're like
yeah.
totally the bad guy, but then you get to come be the good guy, like in the
yeah.
in your poker life. Wow.
I don't know if I'd see myself as a bad guy in my daytime job, but maybe some people would.
How old are you?
So that's an interesting question that Mark's gonna smile at, because I don't actually divulge my age on stream. It's sort of like become a meme at this point.
Oh, if I watched the stream more regularly, I would just jump right on in with like these good jokes. Yeah, because you have such a cute baby face, but then like that's you. I mean, really, you need a lot of energy to like have a child and have a job, and then to have a child, a job, and like what's essentially a third full-time job is quite a lot. So, and that also I think speaks clearly to your passion and dedication which I'm sure your audience loves more than they love the wanting to know. Someone will find your name. Reddit, like get your shit at 4chan. Where are you?
Yeah,
we need to know Accidental Grenade's age. Someone figure it out.
People don't try that hard. It's mostly just a meme. It's fun to watch people hear me reference like a TV show or something that I enjoyed and then try to like connect the dots. I picture them like conspiracy theorists with the strings on the wall, you know, trying to connect all the clues. Yeah.
That's fully me. That's gonna be me. All right, well, Mark, well, let's talk a little bit about your journey into the streaming and the poker space both.
Yeah, I am trying to.
Wait, how old are you, Mark? Just kidding. It's fine. You don't have to tell me.
I'm 28. I actually freely share that information. Another difference between me and AG. But I'm trying just as hard as everybody else. Everybody thinks I'm on the inside and know AG's age. It's not the case. I have the string boards as well. I did. So when I lived over in New Jersey, I started living in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. I had a home game there, and Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or PokerStars New Jersey actually came first before PokerStars Pennsylvania. And I was able to play at my parents' house for a New Jersey Scoop, a $20 deep stacks event. Had like 1,100 runners at the time. And I was very lucky. I had a chip lead for much of the tournament. It was like 9 hours long, and I actually won the tournament. And I knew from that moment on, if PokerStars ever launched in Pennsylvania, I was in. Like, I wanted to stream it. I wanted to play avidly. I wanted to get better at poker. It was just so much fun to me, and it was so much fun to share that experience with the one other person in my house, which was my mom at the time, that if I ever had the opportunity to share it with a bunch of people, I would. And when PokerStars PA launched, I was live the day of the soft launch. I think AG was as well. So we were just super involved. And when both people are starting the day of the soft launch, and we're in a lot of the same tournaments, we're excited about all the same moments happening on each other's streams. We found each other after like a couple days. We rated each other's channels, and then it just kind of grew from there. New opportunities in streaming, new opportunities in poker, and it was so much fun. And we had a lot of the same folks hanging out in both of our chats as well, and it made it a really cool experience.
So that's something kind of unique, which is ultimately why I decided to interview you guys together. Sometimes I find it's more difficult to interview multiple people at one time, but one of your handlers, if you will, mentioned that you guys were both busy today because you were doing a dual stream, which I'm sure this is something, if you're, deep in the Twitch community, that more people do. I don't know, but it's not something I hear of very regularly. And so I thought this is really kind of a cool, interesting thing. For those who don't know, this will probably go up on a Thursday next week, but Thursdays, you guys do a dual stream. So Keith, why don't you talk me through? No, actually, I want to stay with you for a second, Mark. You know what I mean? I don't want to let it go back and forth, but talk me through a little bit about what a dual stream looks like. How do you guys, as a person in the media, like a dual interview is harder. Tell me about the dual stream.
The dual stream is by far harder. It's a lot more nuts and bolts, a lot more technical problems. There's like some issues where you can't talk through every single one of your decisions, especially if your co-host is on the same table as you, which we've ran into a bunch of times. Mm-hmm. But it is so much fun. So what we do is we each share one table at a time. We each share our face on stream for our reactions. And we try to make it more of, I think each of our individual streams focuses a little more on the poker. When we come together, it's more about the community as a whole, stories in poker, stories throughout the week that we've had, stories of community members throughout the week, and we get to just talk and enjoy it more. And I love that content. I think it's the best content that I get to make every week, and it's an absolute blast. And I'm so glad we started doing it. And I wouldn't have it any other way, despite it being a much harder format to pull off. And I know there's a few dual streams that came before us, like some of our mentors on our team, like Spraggy and Easy with Aces did it a few years back, and GJ and Pi did it a few years back. And we've ripped off the format a little bit, but we like to put our own spin on it. And it's it's a real great time.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me then, Keith, there's a little bit of overlap in your guys' audience, maybe a lot of overlap. I don't know, but talk to me a little bit about what you think your sort of community is. And I guess sort of, do you think this is indicative of what we can hope for and look for in our, the future of poker in the United States online? Is there a solid audience? Are there a lot of people out here who are just like dying and trying to play in their whatever state they are in? Are you guys is your audience mostly people in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware? Do you get a lot of people who are just like, oh, I'm in Texas, like me, who are just like so wanting it to come to them and just like living vicariously through you? Who's your audience?
I think there's a lot of that out there. I think our audience is primarily Pennsylvanian, and they're amazing. Like, I think the stream, and particularly the dual stream, I think one of the big values of the dual stream is people get to see us cheering for each other. And I think it's sort of grown this community of like love and support. And I always say I'm so surprised how much love there is for each other in a competitive game. Like, we all just root each other on. And poker's very empathetic. Everyone can empathize with bad beats and horrible losses at the same time, right? So it's just sort of something that I didn't really see before I started streaming poker, was how much people support each other within this community. I would say our audience is primarily Pennsylvanian, because we got started in the, I don't know if we really talked about it yet, but we got started doing the Dare to Stream competition, which is something that was run by GJ Reggie and Pie Face Poker, giving away platinum passes. Now, Mark and I didn't win, but that was what allowed us to make a lot of networking connections and learn about streaming poker and the challenges that come along with it, whether it's like switching tables or delay and dealing with chat with delay and stuff like that. We do have some audience members who are over in Europe as well, who will join because of that. But I think we kind of don't have a lot of audience members. We get occasionals from other states, but it's just poker's not on their radar anymore, right? Because it's just so not present in a regulated fashion in those states. And I think as soon as there are whispers and rumors of it coming back, that's when we're going to see those massive influxes. But we have started getting viewers coming over from Michigan since PokerStars launched in Michigan, which has been really cool to see. And we get New Jersey viewers as well for kind of the same reason. But yeah, I would say primarily Pennsylvanian, and they're awesome. It's like so many names that we see all the time. Everybody from micro stakes players to like the high stakes reg crushers on Pennsylvania come in and hang out in the channel, and we all get to root each other on. And yeah, we love railing friends of the stream, watching their tables. If viewers aren't familiar with the railing parlance, that means like just we pull up a friend of the stream's table when they're on a deep run, and we get to sort of like all watch together as they try to crush a tournament, and it's really fun to cheer them on.
It's the best. It's the second best to actually being there, having all of the wines and beers and
Right,
yelling
yeah.
uncontrollably.
Yeah.
The final table. Well, I think, I'll go, I think, to Mark on this one. So I remember I actually went for the soft launch in New Jersey. And did some like trying to interview people on the streets and just see like, did anybody even know this was happening? Was this a thing? But set up an account, tried to, I got to experience playing online for the first time in like a long time, which was amazing. But I think, of course, there's always going to be difficulties in that there's a much smaller player pool, right? So as Pennsylvania is sort of central though in a lot of ways. I think it's like if people are going to come out for Sundays or whatever, I can see how a lot of these places that are closer together, not Michigan, unfortunately, but Delaware, New Jersey, that you can see crossover. And now we are actually seeing some of these player pools coming together and the potential of more player pools, hopefully. But can you talk to me a little bit? I remember speaking to like Jamie Kurtzsitter and Katie Stone and just being like, okay, how can you make money in this environment that seems like probably the only people that are playing like super regularly know what they're doing? Is that what you find? Mark, tell me just a little bit about what the limitations of this smaller market are and how that lends itself or doesn't to trying to make a living as a poker player in America right now?
Sure. I believe that one of the biggest constraints we have is that everybody that you play with regularly has a ton of hands on you. They are very comfortable with the way you play. Like, we see a lot of the same names a lot. But that being said, there's always new folks joining. Some of them are the best players in the world. Some of them are joining our chats and maybe playing for the first time and playing in the low stakes. And we hope that through our channel, they grow to be one of the best players in the world. But there's always that thought. It's a little bit smaller, a little bit of everyone kind of knows each other's name a little bit. And tournaments are still a ton of fun. There's still enough opportunity to generate edge and still enough opportunity to kind of change up your play a little bit and see what you can do to play your best game. And I think the series, the PA Scoops and the other series weeks that PokerStars has launched has also brought a ton of folks from other states or a ton of people that maybe would be going to land-based options out to play in the online treats. And they're always a blast, and they always show a bunch of new faces. And that's definitely a lot of fun too.
That's something I was going to ask, Keith. I was assuming that probably one of the things that would be the result of playing with so many people that you see regularly, especially if you're playing in similar stakes, was that you have to be more conscious of mixing your game up versus, some of these sites and places where you're more than likely like not playing with a lot of the same regulars. You can kind of keep your game standard. So is that something that you guys, is that something I guess that you really focus on in order to combat this, I guess, downside or potential downside?
Yeah, definitely, as much as possible. It's really important to be cognizant of our perceived image or how many hands people have, as Mark said, on us. I mean, we put ourselves knowingly at a disadvantage, right? Because even if they're not necessarily tracking all the hands or like writing them down, we show every single hand that we play, basically, right? Like, so like that, if you were really trying to try hard poker, that's not something you would do. So like we're knowingly putting the information out there. And it's important to try to learn how to balance our ranges, how to I played a lot of micro stakes up to low stakes. So I actually recently I went from $50 starting and all the way up to $10,000 on my bankroll. And I completed a challenge getting to $10,000. But a lot of what I played was in micro and low stakes. And in those stakes, I played very tight, I was a nit is what I get called quite often on my stream. But being aware of that image has allowed me to play exploitatively sometimes in some big spots and pull off some big bluffs in certain ways, because I know that that's my overall perceived image, and I try to use it strategically when I can. And all that kind of game flow stuff, all that kind of balancing is even more important for us, but it's important for every player. So I don't think it's like a huge difference. I think every player should be balancing, right, and should be aware of those things. It's just kind of dialed up to 11 for us as streamers.
Yes, and you also have a million other things to think about, which is something right. I also just have such a deep respect for even I'm live streaming a debate here in like 30 minutes, and it's like just me managing the chat and the images people are seeing, and like then trying to actually do the conversation and manage the debate itself is like so extra. There's just like so many things going on. So I have such a deep respect for.
Yeah. And if I could say real quick, the dual stream, we talked about that is also like kind of that taken to like the highest level. Like Mark and I are both super relieved. So I think we told you we alternate channels in the dual stream. So it's Thursday nights, but it alternates between my channel and his. And we're both so relieved when we don't have to be the driver of the dual stream, because driving is so much worse. It's so much harder.
Oh my gosh, fully. And then you're managing like two things, and you're like, okay, should I talk now? Should I let the other?
Right.
Oh my
all
gosh.
That ebb and flow. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Good night. And so you guys talked just briefly about like, okay, some of the stakes you played before, some of like tournaments you've jumped into, the scoops, these things. Before I let you guys go, which I am going to do in about 3 minutes, so that I know, like, accidental, you need to like eat lunch because you have to go back to your job probably. Yep. So I wanted to talk though about, are you guys primarily playing and streaming more than anything, MTTs, cash games, like stakes? What are people going to see when they come to your channel? And we'll start with Mark for this one.
Sure. I think you'll get largely the same answer. We stream MTTs primarily, and we've had a blast doing that. We've also just had Spin and Goes launch in PokerStars Pennsylvania, so we're really excited to give that format a try. It's super quick and exciting, and always adds like an extra element. So I think we're going to be firing some of those on the stream, at least tonight and maybe the next week or two.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, it's so funny because when PokerStars launched in New Jersey, and when I started interviewing some of the people who were playing regularly, my East Coast grinder people, most of them were playing Spin and Goes like as their bread and butter, which I thought was really interesting, because I thought they were, I mean, I was like, oh, it's a gamble, like, yay, it's fun and exciting. But like, these were hardcore poker players. And I mean, I'm not sure, they must have just run a lot of things and figured out like where you could find your edges in this. But I was like, sure, three-handed, like this seems like not a way to just make money. But so this just now is launching in Pennsylvania also? Correct.
Yeah, it just launched this week. Yep.
Wow. Okay, well, I definitely would check that. Like, that would be fun. I would like to watch that. I mean, I want to play MTTs, but like I want to watch people spin.
Oh yeah. I want to play this, but I want to watch that. I hear you. No, yeah. Spins are super exciting and really engaging with the audience. They love the gamble, and I think there's some sound strategy behind them. I think a lot of people have figured out kind of like the three-handed ranges and found a way to make it work for them.
Yeah, I guess it does sort of limit some of the information is smaller than I think maybe you can understand what's like optimal play a little bit easier. I don't know. Listen, I'm no expert here. So let's start with Accidental Grenade. Tell me, for our audience, what's your typical stream schedule, and where can they, where can the audience most easily find you should they want to jump into your stream and check it out?
Sure. The easiest way is you can always find me on Wednesdays and Saturdays on my channel, and then Thursdays are the alternating dual stream. I occasionally also do gaming streams in between series. I'm looking to get back into more of those. I try to do interactive gaming streams with games where like the audience can participate on Sunday mornings. So like before the Sunday morning poker grind in Pennsylvania time. I treat my stream as a podcast, basically. I think poker is amazing because of the downtime it grants you for banter, and I really like to just like sort of hang out with my audience. Obviously, we have the super focused poker times whenever we get on final tables and things like that, but it's a fun place to be, and I'd welcome anybody from the podcast who's listening to come join.
Same question for you, Mark. Where, when can they find you?
Sure. So I stream on Tuesday nights from 6 to 10 EST. And then on Thursday nights, I'm alternating with AG on his channel and my own at twitch.tv/901. And then on Sundays, that's my long day. I'm part of the Twitch Poker Sunday grind. There's probably starting around anywhere from like 12 to 4 p.m. start time, and then hopefully 2 a.m. Monday morning end time if everything goes our way.
Right.
So Sunday's always exciting, always the bigger buy-ins, and it's always a blast.
And then during the rest of the week and during the day, are you like a lumberjack, or what are you doing?
I hope that was fed to you in some way. Because if you just got that without any help, then I really need to rebrand.
I love it.
No, I love your brand.
But yes, that is every single break. Folks think that I'm running outside and chopping logs
on trees.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the beard and the flannels do it. And yeah, my chat has definitely came in on that same string that I can't believe in a very short podcast you pulled on the same one. But that's
the low-hanging fruit. That's what I always go for.
But yes, during the day I'm also a software developer. So I let the attire fool people.
You could totally get away with it. If you want to make it like a secondary life story, I'll fully believe that. And all right, well, I appreciate you guys so much taking the time. Oh, and I know you probably don't have time to explain the whole backstory because we need to make sure that Keith gets some food before he has to go back to designing the software. And probably you too, Mark. You probably have to go design software really quick. But for those who didn't catch, it's NAIGO1 for Mark's stream. Yes?
Yes.
NIGO.
Yes, that's me.
Okay.
That was an old Sicilian word to mean I caught one. It's something my father said when I was born, and it's a very important word for me, and it's a way for me to kind of have my parents involved in the stream somehow from the get-go, and they always supported me. And I felt it definitely fit with the poker vibe as well, right? To catch a great card on the river or whatever happened. So that's a little bit of the backstory, and I know it's tough to pronounce. So I put every other streamer that catches a raid or anything through the ringer, but it means the world to me. So I put it in the handle.
I love it. Nigo. I love anything like old and Sicilian. It seems very, very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys so much taking the time. I know that you guys clearly have very busy schedules and lives. And so I am grateful. I'm sure my audience is grateful. And I just wish you guys luck. For who's hosting it this week?
That would be me. That'll be
Godspeed.
me tonight, actually.
Enjoy.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
Well, there is so much going on in America. Last week, the sort of theme of our show was, the current state of poker in the United States. Kind of feels like that's easing on into the next week as well. And I think that's great news for everyone. And I hope that ultimately the US is leading the way back towards our own liberty in the online space, and also towards the worldwide liberty in the space of being able to play live poker everywhere. And we all know the World Series of Poker circuit sort of famously moved online and has been doing a tournament series every single month. And if you are playing any of those, you would probably recognize the headliner of our next story, because he seems to just win them all.
Yeah, we're talking about Daniel Buzgon out of New Jersey. He's a long time. Yeah, the juice. He's a long time grinder, but like he's always been good. But I think what's happening here in the last few months has really shown just how much of a superstar this guy is. So he recently won the WSOP circuit, Caesars Atlantic City online circuit. It's happening right now. They're going to award a dozen gold rings throughout the series. Jesse Folan has been streaming some of the action on the PokerNews Twitch stream. Well, he kicked things off by winning event number 1 for almost $13,000. Good score, right? But they're going to have a ring event in a score like that every day. What makes it so special for Daniel Buzgon is that it was his 8th overall ring, right? But his 4th ring in 4 months. So he's basically, every time they're having one of these series, he seems to be snagging a ring. I think it started back in February. They had the online Planet Hollywood series. He won the knockout freeze-out tournament. And then 2 days later, won event number 10 for another $25,000. That was the big 500. So he won 2 rings in the February series. And then in March, he followed it up by winning the Silver Legacy online circuit, event number 9. It was a double stack event for another $25,000. And then here we have him again in May. And it's just like, how far is he going to take this? And then it's opening up this debate, which is going to be interesting. Nobody's really had it yet. It's just something I can see coming down the road. And it's that, how are these rings going to factor into the all-time ring race, if you will, right? So like bracelets, there's been for the WSOP circuit, the ring race, if you will. And Maurice Hawkins is on top of that with 14 rings. Hot on his heels is Valentine Vorniku and Josh Reichard, both with 12. Then you have Ari Engel with 10, Daniel Lowry, Robert Hankins, bunch of other people with 9 rings. And then, of course, you have people like we just mentioned, Daniel Buzgon with 8. And so, like, okay, so half of his rings are online. All of Maurice Hawkins are live. All of Josh Reichard's are live. And like, it's just one of those things I can see coming down the pipeline. Like, there's going to be this debate. All right, are they real rings? Should they count in this ring race? And you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I totally get what you mean. And I hope that after 2021, the World Series goes back to their more traditional model of having online circuit ring series, but not having one every single month out of the year, because then you could say that the value of the online rings should not necessarily be compared to the value of the live rings. I think for this year and for last year, I think rings should count exactly the same. And just another shout out to Juice. You know, I've mentioned this before. There's a group of like 10 or 15 players online here at WSOP.com in New Jersey and Nevada where, you know, they sit down at your table and you're like, well, shit, this sucks. And Juice is definitely one of them. I mean, he's an absolute class act as well. And it's good to see him succeed because, you know, that guy puts in the work and certainly puts in the volume.
This is actually, guys, potentially going to be the subject of our next, if you guys missed it, our last PokerNews debate was, do ambassadors have a more responsibility when representing unregulated sites? We had that last week. I just put it out on our podcast, on our Libsyn, but maybe Chad will put an article up on PokerNews. But our next debate subject is going to be, should WSOP.com bracelets count or have the same value as, you know, traditional bracelets? And I think it only makes sense then to also add in the concept of the circuit rings. And does it also make sense that these ones get treated the same? So be keeping your guys' eye out for that. I'll be scheduling it this week, and then you guys can jump in the conversation should you have anything to add. Well, we always talk on this show about how important it is to bring poker into the lives and homes of those who may not already be in the poker scene and in the poker industry. And Party Poker is definitely doing that, and in a big way. Jeff, the expert on Formula One racing from our PokerNews team.
Expert as of 3 weeks ago when I got hooked on this Netflix documentary about Formula One Drive to Survive, I think it is. Would highly recommend it. I wasn't into racing at all. Fired up an episode, boom, finished 3 seasons. That doesn't relate at all to this story. But this story is Entain, which is Party Poker's parent company, and McLaren entering a multi-year partnership. What does that mean? Well, that means that we're going to see some PartyCasino and some Party Poker branding on Formula One cars. Formula One kind of does it like NASCAR, a little bit less as far as brands all over the car are concerned. So this is big exposure for Party Poker. And I think it's a really big mainstream partnership to have Party Poker, to have PartyCasino attached with a Formula One team, of which there are only 10 in the world. I just think that's important. That's good for everybody. It is, as we say, hashtag good for the game. There it is. Sarah, I know you'll be a big McLaren Formula One racing fan now. Daniel Ricciardo's their star driver. You'll like Daniel Ricciardo. If you look him up, I just think that you would like Daniel Ricciardo. I'll leave it at that.
I'm interviewing some, you know, producer presenter types for the World Series this last week. And one of the girls that I was talking to is like deeply embedded in this Formula One world and is a presenter for some Formula One, you know, news sites or whatever. We just happened to have been talking about it yesterday and talking about how in Monte Carlo, this was her first experience in seeing the live poker scene, and how she saw there was quite a lot of overlap actually from, we talk about all these different industries where it seems like poker overlaps, you know, golf, maybe MMA, chess. Clearly there's definitely some things, and it seems like racing is a great matchup for poker. I hope, and bring those bougie bitches up onto the poker felt, please. I would love to see it. I've watched a few things on Formula One too. I think it's anything that brings really competitive people into it, I think is a good fit for poker, and also things that we can bet on. And finally, the last story of the show, we want to talk about, seems like we talk about him pretty regularly, maybe at least once a month. Niklas Astedt wins his second GGPoker Super Millions title. I know they are coming up, the Super Millions is coming up on maybe its 1 year anniversary fairly soon, and PokerNews is going to be releasing an article which sort of breaks down all of the stats. I very clearly expect to see Niklas Astedt in a lot of the stats regarding the Super Millions, among a few other players that we seem to talk about on a regular basis. And speaking of the GG Poker, we not it might be, I think next week. I had an interview this morning with Poker Sasha, and she was awesome. Her story was super interesting. And I'm really excited to release that interview to you guys. So you definitely want to stay tuned to that. And let's just go ahead and wrap it up with a little message from our homies at GGPoker.
GGPoker continues to revolutionize online poker with exclusive new games and features that set it apart from the opposition. Play at neck-breaking speed on the site's exciting spin and gold jackpot sit and go events and win big. Or grind it out in the weekly $300,000 guaranteed GG Masters. You guys will not want to miss out on the GG Poker bonuses. You can get either $100 in cash and free tickets or 100% match bonus up to a maximum of $600. You guys definitely do not want to miss out on their match deposit bonus. You can check that out on PokerNews.com. Be sure to search GG Poker bonus on PokerNews.com.